Welcome to The Green Room, the podcast that bridges the gap between church production and every other aspect of a worship service. From programming directors to worship leaders, volunteers to vendors, tune in for inspiring conversations, expert advice, and a unique look into the intricate puzzle of church production. Here's your host, Aaron Freeman.
Taylor, thanks for being here. This is super awesome. I am very glad that you're in the green room with me. Man, we've known each other for coming up on probably 10 years.
It's been over a decade. Yeah.
It's crazy.
I was reflecting on that. The older you get, the easier it is to have those relationships, I feel like.
Yeah.
But it definitely just means we've been a part of each other's lives for a very long time. So
yeah, we kept running into each other. You were at Roswell while I was there. Then you were at Magnum, and
I totally forgot that I actually met you at Roswell UMC.
You were doing some youth event. Yeah.
It was the D-Now weekends, that outreach weekends for Roswell UMC, doing the at the Dodson. Great memories in that place of me trying to grab dimmer cables, they were all over the place, and it's just interesting room. So, but then
that room was it was a gym basically, right? If I remember right.
Yeah, that's why all the lights kept getting unfocused, because the kids would literally throw basketballs at the lights, and then the lights are all static. So then the lights would get off focus and everything. And I would get there to do an event, and I'd be like, I have to refocus everything in the room. So I would say the interesting thing is that's the only place I've ever seen a ghost is at the Dodson.
It is an old, Roswell UMC is downtown Roswell, Georgia. It's this big old church. And then their youth center is some historical house that they bought and turned into the youth center or something.
Yeah, bottom auditorium was a gym, and had a hallway going down to another rec room, and then the second story of the house was small group rooms. And I didn't attend the church, but I definitely spent a lot of late nights there. And one night when I was there, I swear I saw a ghost on my way out of there, and I think that was the last time I ever went into the Dodson.
I'm good. See,
I'm not going to tell you that ghost story because this is not that podcast. But,
it's fine.
Roswell is definitely a very historical place in Georgia. So,
that was the youth center is one thing, but then the auditorium is beautiful. It's a very traditional Methodist sanctuary. It's the octagon. And the massive pipe organ, which it's amazing. And they still have some that plays it.
That at all anywhere. It's in America, most of them have been replaced with electronic pipe organs, with speakers that are just behind things that look like pipe organs. So have one that's functioning, and it's historic as well. Probably.
And an organist to play it. They're lucky to have all that. And it was incredible. Yeah. And
you got to keep the universities, keeping the organ programs going to the universities somehow.
That's true, I guess. Yeah, there's actually a couple of organs in Atlanta. You got, I'm sure there's more than I probably know, but you get the Tabernacle has one. Roswell
Fox
has one.
The famous Warlick.
That's right. Yeah.
Mighty Metal. And then you have one north of the city. I think there's a Presbyterian church, Peachtree Road Presbyterian, that has a beautiful double pipe organ, believe it or not.
Double pipe. What's a double pipe organ?
They literally have one that's in the front of their auditorium, and they have one in the back of the auditorium.
Oh yeah.
And it's just they have two, it's just two pipe organs in one sanctuary, which you would be not enough? Don't and they're no, we just want that.
We want another one.
Why not?
Yeah. Well, I just love I would never be able to play it. I can't play the piano. I've failed piano class, literally. These hands don't work together, but that's one of the things. If I could wake up and just know how to do something, I would want to learn I would want to know how to play the piano, and then the organ.
The organ's like a completely different beast from what I've heard. I definitely don't even pretend to know how to play organ. I play like
Mm.
key piano, and I
Hmm.
play fake, like so I just do like chords and everything, and then like read
Hmm.
sight music for fun, just because it's very technical and gives me a
Yeah.
headache just like reading music. But at the same time, enough about me.
Yeah.
The discipline going into organ playing, because you have like different knobs that control different
Yeah.
instruments, and then like
Yeah.
your feet do bass notes at the same
Hmm.
time as like you're playing like 15 keyboards doing like
Uh-huh.
it's just it's
And
amazing.
then
Like,
pulling out those stops as you're like, I
yeah,
need trumpets or I need
yeah, I
flutes.
need
And then
this, I
like,
need this. So
yeah.
I'm playing it's Christmas time, so like I'm playing the sleigh bell song, so let me trigger
Uh-huh.
some sleigh bells with the like
Right.
the
And
organ,
then
because
and then
yeah.
everybody's behind you because you're like they have like a little screen to see the conductor. Like I can't even imagine.
And that's
Um,
like we're getting more into like movie organs, like from like the 1920s, where they used to have to
mhm.
like have an organist during silent
Oh
movies.
yeah. Yeah.
So but
That's
Atlanta's
fun.
a fantastic art scene, which I think is why we are so blessed to have like so many good contractors and so many just a
Yeah.
rich pool of great, great talented
Yeah.
artists and people that we can collaborate with a lot of times too. So
And a lot of large churches, which I think
we
probably
are a mecca of mega churches. We met at Roswell.
that
Like,
might
I
be
mean,
a little
sorry, can I
blending.
say that
Just kidding.
is that crude? Is that iconoclastic? Maybe cut that one out.
It's
But
just I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know.
we are a central hub for mega churches,
Really?
especially
Yeah, we
in
really are.
America. And
Yeah.
Dallas is second, I think, to Atlanta. And
Okay.
Dallas might like actually fist fight me over that one, but Atlanta definitely has one of the largest
Yeah.
Christian markets in America, and
Yeah.
it's a fantastic thing for all of us that have plenty of places to go to do ministry,
Yeah.
really, to reach people in a variety of different ways. So.
Yeah. How did you get plugged into that kind of stuff? Like, did you grow up, doing lights um or what's sort of your background in getting into the church world slash production world?
So I started doing lights at Brookwood High School in Gwinnett County. It was really my starting point at
Hmm.
the same time as doing plays and musicals, and
Mm, yeah.
being like one of the only seven guys that wanted to be in the musicals like in
True.
2006, right? Like, let's rewind the clock to 2006. But I had a really good drama teacher who kind of pushed me into that and was like, "Hey, like you're
Yeah.
really good at lighting." And I was like, yeah, I kind of actually really enjoy doing lighting. So let's see what a
Cool.
career option might look like in the theater world.
Oh
I
wow.
didn't have the patience to go through the whole college thing, and the theater world is
Okay.
really neat college experience. So I got plugged in, like most of us, at my local church that I grew up at. So I grew up
Okay.
at First Snellville, that became Cross Point Church when the
Oh,
pastor transitioned to a different church. Me and my
okay.
mom followed him over to the new church, helped him plant that church. And that's where I met my first mentor, a guy named Mike, who really was like, hey, kind of reiterated what my
Hmm.
drama teacher had said, and was like, hey, like you're really good at lights. Like, have you ever thought about doing this as a career? And I was like, yeah, in the theater world, but you can't really make money at it. Like, and I'm not
Mm,
like, didn't want to like role in it, but I wanted something that was consistent, that was steady, and that was something that I could pay the bills with, because
yeah.
that was what my parents wanted for me, really. Like,
Sure.
any parent would want that for their
Right.
kids. So
Yeah,
that's
of
kind of
course.
the
Hmm.
long story short of how I got started in church world. I'd always been, very ministry oriented. Even when I like went to Cross Point, I was serving as a greeter on Sunday mornings at the
Mm,
church, and was
yeah,
like very
cool.
active as far as volunteering, like volunteered in the youth band, that kind of stuff. So naturally, I always have had an affinity for ministry, and then the lighting production side combines the ministry side when you come into a church and you step into a church production role.
Hmm.
So it's like a natural fit for me as a church kid who's been a Christian pretty much my whole
Yeah.
entire life, to
No,
just
I get that.
naturally,
Yeah.
yeah, step into those
Yeah.
environments.
Yeah.
And from there, my career has kind of grown from that, and from those sparks of inspiration from key people in my life that have
Mm,
kind of
yeah.
catalysts and driven me forward to
Hmm.
create the person that I am today. And that's I'm really thankful for that. And I get nostalgic about it sometimes too, where I'm just like, I cannot thank the people that have
Right.
been part of my story, and you probably understand that too.
Hmm.
So.
Oh yeah, I completely understand. And it's unexpected. Like you're not looking for those people or you don't realize that that's happening. until you're looking back on it. You're like, oh, he really helped me, or like he introduced me to this and I didn't know that it was, X. I'm sure a lot of most people
I
have that sort of experience.
Yeah, and I had a tour manager tell me one time, it's like you never know who's going to be standing behind you,
Mm,
you're doing something, or when you're like, creating, or when you're doing your thing,
yeah.
being the person who you are. You never know who's going to be
Mm,
around you. I always have the statement that, like, if you toss a rock into a pond, the rock makes ripples on the top of the water, but the rock
mhm,
isn't necessarily aware of the ripples that it makes when it's tossed into the pond.
mm.
And it's kind of like a person who influences necessarily aware of the people who they influence at the same time too.
That's a good
So
point.
that's a
Well,
Taylor. Yeah, I'm just gonna
no,
stop
that's
there.
great. I mean, that's
Yeah,
great because I mean, I would say I'm one of your ripples in
dude.
sort of the lighting, like the lighting world. I mean, like I learned from when you were at well, Roswell, but then like when you did stuff for North Point, and I was just sort of dipping my toe into learning Grand MA and stuff like that. And you're like you went over like your sort of like hierarchy of lighting, and I mean, that stuck with me. How long now? 6 years. And I'm like, oh yeah, I would love for you to go over that for, if you want to
Yeah,
talk about that kind of thing, like what you think through when you sit down to program like a lighting show. Um,
yeah. All the bits and pieces of it,
mhm,
what goes into it. The craziest thing is always for me at least, is trying to figure out what color to use.
mm,
Is always the hardest place to start. To me, there's certain songs that have different colors, and explaining the process is, listening to the music.
mhm,
First of all, just seeing, what the energy of the song is, because lighting is energy, and it's all about the energy, not to
mhm.
sound like, like a new age hippie or anything like that.
No,
I don't know if I can say that. That might not be
you
politically
can't.
correct.
Yeah, yeah, it's fine.
But not to
It's a
be like,
podcast. Yeah.
yeah, hey, it's for consumption. So, it's Joe Rogan is
No.
definitely worse, right?
No, like I do want to ask a question about that. Do what's your thought on lighting being, adding energy, or are you trying to just match the energy, or are there any times where you like, I want to add energy to this song with lighting, or
That's a great question. As far as like energy creation goes, I would say it depends on the environment, right? Like I'm
okay,
not going to try to hype up a bunch of adults like I would a bunch of like a bunch of middle
yeah,
schoolers or high
yeah,
schoolers or students. I
okay,
wouldn't program for children the same way I would age groups. And I divide it into
okay,
age groups. But
even
more
if they're
broad
doing like the same song, like
yeah, completely. I've
okay,
programmed differently, different song energy wise. Like I try to keep upbeat for students, because students, tend to get distracted. They
hmm,
like to, get into the songs and like, get hype and jump
mm,
around and everything. So I might, strobe the lights a little bit to encourage that moment, maybe, or
okay,
to increase the energy of that moment, right?
yeah,
Much to the chagrin of worship leaders a lot of times too, because they're the ones that are on the, I
that's
black
true.
the lights and they're trying to play instruments while I'm strobing lights. And I always feel absolutely terrible as I'm doing those, trying to create those moments.
I've
But,
never thought about that.
and they're doing the same thing too.
Sorry,
Like when they're,
everybody.
yeah, I'm so
Uh,
sorry, so sorry.
uh,
And like, you can ask anybody that's known me for,
hmm,
as long as I've been doing this, and they will definitely say that like I love strobe lights, and I love, creating those high energy moments. But
hmm,
I step back into what we would call at North Point an SPD environment, which is our adult programming environment.
yeah,
And we approach that from a different perspective of a newcomer, like,
hmm,
first time visitor who's coming into
right,
that environment. And
yeah,
we're trying to create a nice, safe space that might be for some people, the first time they've been to church in,
yeah,
a decade. It could be the first time they've ever stepped into a church. They
sure,
could be from a different faith, a different religion, and they could,
yeah,
and this is how we're setting, the stage and the foundation for the rest of their faith.
hmm,
So look at that from the lighting perspective too. You go and like, yeah, the students I can do that with. The adults, maybe if there's a cool opener, yeah, let's strobe it
yeah,
out. Let's create that moment. But that's when collaboration and teamwork comes into a little bit more play,
hmm,
where we have different people on those teams who kind of collaborate together to create those moments, just to make sure that we check all of our boxes in organization, like as we should. So
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so going back to so you pick a
lighting,
color.
yeah. So I pick a
So
color.
is it like when you're going through the color wheel, like is it the tone of the song? Is it the tempo of the song? Or is it like, hey, this has a lot of drums, so it's a certain color? Or like, is it just a
So
feeling?
yeah, so like synth songs, I'll start with synth, like, because synth is really
Hmm.
popular right now. So if it's got
Yeah.
like heavy synth tracks, I normally go for neon colors, just like
Okay.
very 80s
Yeah.
vibe to me for some reason. If it's a happy upbeat song, normally you go for like warmer colors like yellows and
Mm.
oranges. If it's a, let's say, slower song, might go more for blue.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously it's the go-to choice. Purples are very great for like slow calming songs.
Mm-hmm.
Green apparently is the most calming color, hence the Green Room podcast. Little name drop there. But also at the same time, like different songs have different shades of the same color too. So like,
Mm.
I might have three different green songs and they might all three be different tempos. It might be a slow, medium, and a high tempo green song.
Uh-huh.
It's at the same time, it might be a pastel green, a super saturated green, and like a
Mm-hmm.
lime green, and those three
Mm-hmm.
colors create different energies, I would say, or create different
Hmm.
energies,
Yeah.
or meanings to different people's, because,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of psychology that goes into color
Oh,
and
yeah.
how humans interact and perceive color, and just
Mm-hmm.
what color does to us, as
Right.
humans.
That's
So
crazy.
there's a little
Yeah.
bit of that goes into the choices that you make as a lighting
Mm.
designer with color, especially in church environments. So sometimes
Yeah.
in worship environments, I have been known to do more like I laugh when I say more traditional church colors. So like, I tend to stick more towards purples, golds, whites, stuff that, reds, definitely stuff that make people think of like, Jesus, the sacrifice he made for
Hmm.
it, royalty of him at the same time too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like symbolism with color, that
Mm-hmm.
people have,
Yeah.
meaning tied into that particular color. So like,
Yeah.
me, the shade of red is very like calming.
Oh,
Like
interesting. Really?
I sleep in red light, like, and red is
Oh.
actually the best for like nighttime and low light situations,
Oh,
and for
true. Yeah.
for your eyes adjusting.
Backstage, you got it's red light and stuff like that. Yeah.
Red light in a lot of theaters, blue
Mm-hmm.
lights also, like,
Yeah, blue
really
light.
good
Mm-hmm.
in situations. But all that to say,
Huh. Yeah.
to another person, red light might be a super exciting color, or it might
Yeah.
be something that could be negative connotated. I don't want to go
Sure.
there, but like, who knows? I
Yeah.
don't know. So
That's interesting. Okay, so first step or first thing you're thinking through when you sit down is color.
a 30-minute to like 2.5 hour long discussion with myself on what color I want to use. Yeah. Like dead
No, that's
serious.
great. I mean, no,
I
that I
mean,
mean,
yeah.
no, I want to, have these conversations so that, other people can think through those things, be more intentional about those kind of things rather than just throwing color up for the
Right. And
sake
I
of
mean, it's,
color.
and sometimes like, anyway, we're not going to go there. So the second step is really knowing your fixtures and knowing your rig.
Hmm.
So if I'm ever in a new environment, the first thing I do is get to know the lights that are in that environment. If
Okay.
I know the console, hopefully I'm not learning the console, because the first
Hmm.
thing you want to know is, you always want to make sure that you know the console that you're using, and you know how to set it up for your success. Like,
Okay.
I'm very famous for taking other people's shows and completely gutting them, and keeping the patch
Okay.
information. Yeah, like dead serious, like gutting like a fish, and like keeping the patch information for the show, because I have very particular ways that I like to set up. And the console that I'm talking about is an MA2.
Okay.
Um, just for reference, but it's
Yeah.
like I have a very particular way that I like the screens laid out, and where my buttons are, and where I'm used to, like where my
Sure.
muscle memory is on the
Yeah.
layouts on the screens. So I have the tendency just to trash everyone else's like layouts and setups and everything, and recreate my own when I go into a new room. And then I
Okay.
start to get the fixtures in that way the console set up for my success. And
Mm-hmm.
then I need to know the fixtures, like as far as like what are the spots,
Okay.
washes, what are the capabilities, with that, checking out positions at the same time. So it's like with the console setup, it's like select my groups, make sure that, they're all working, make sure that my
Mm,
positions look good in the room, see which ones, as I'm like just setting, this is just setting up, not even thinking about the music, just seeing
hmm.
what the rig is capable of. And
Okay.
then I know when I go and program what's going to look good, what's not going to look good, what's going to, be capable within my time limits too, because there's also a time limit
Mm,
on all this. There's also always an overarching time limit with
hmm.
programming. And Lord knows, like, I want to spend a week programming one song, but this ain't the Taylor Swift tour. So,
Hmm.
I
Right.
just, and eventually, a couple of my audio friends are always like, always bugging me because there's like at a certain point, like you have to be done. Like, they're like, no
Right.
way. Like
Like
Taylor,
we, yeah,
you looked at that transition for 15 to 20 minutes now. Like you have to be done with this. Like,
yeah.
so just going through that process though of first like knowing what color choice and what color direction you want to go with the service, which I credit people by name in this in a good positive way.
Yeah.
There's
That's fine.
so Brittany Kafer, who is
Okay.
one of my friend Andy Kafer's wives, he
Hmm.
is literally Andy Kafer was the campus LD at Woodstock City Church.
Right.
His wife was a producer up there, and she set me down one time and we came up with a color scheme for our whole entire, like, and this was for a transit weekend for our middle
Oh,
schooler.
cool. Yeah.
And he had a very just distinct idea of where she wanted color to go through the
Hmm.
whole entire service, through programming even.
Cool. Yeah.
And that to me like opened up a whole new door for me, so I credit her with that like kind of discussion. But it's
Okay.
like once you figure out where your colors are going, not just what colors are the songs, it's like how the colors even transition from song to song to song,
Wow. Okay.
then you get your system set up. And once you get
Hmm.
your system set up, then you can start like figuring out like how to put the pieces of the song together with your looks and what you want to create and with the energy you want to create with those songs. So
That's
I know
cool.
it's a very complicated way to think about the things, but the more you do it, the better you get at it. And
Sure.
obviously, repetition makes permanence. So
Yeah. Now, when it comes to like you saying, Brittany gave you this uh, sort of direction, is that always more helpful,
Uh,
or
in my life, it's been dependent on how old I am, and how willing I am to
okay?
collaborate in that environment, and depends on who's saying
Mm,
it. Like, so there's a lot of authority, there's a lot of respect that goes into that. In the professional sense, there is a chain of command that you always want to respect in any production environment. Like you have a producer that everyone kind of
hmm.
answers to, controls like, the whole entire, like, who, what, when, where, and why, like,
Yeah.
and you're getting a lot of independence within your lane in production, but you're always like, if you don't have a producer, you're, held to, you answer to your client basically. And that's who
Hmm.
the, in the church sense, our client, I'm not going to say our client is God and Jesus, because that would be way that, I would lose sleep over that. But like our clients are humans, like, humanity is
Right.
our client, like, the community that we serve in is our clients.
Mm,
And that creating the best environment for them is our end goal, as a production team. So part of the hierarchy of that is, going back to your question, being able to collaborate is
hmm.
a super important trait that I've had to learn personally throughout my
Hmm.
career. And having just great collaborative environments, and also great people to collaborate with,
Yeah.
so just like makes the whole entire experience better for everybody, really.
Cool.
So that would be the biggest thing that I
Yeah.
learned from the inspiration thing, is like, it was one of the first times that I had like been confronted with collaboration, and I was just
Hmm.
like, this is amazing. Like I
Yeah.
don't know why I haven't been collaborating. I don't know why I haven't been more of a team player.
Right.
It's
Right.
just something that's so like personal and basic to me as color, right?
Hmm.
And that's another surrender metaphor for Christianity, but we're not going to go that route. I don't want to Jesus juke you, so yeah.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
What's something that, in regards to the collaboration thing, that has really helped you be more collaborative with that person, or is there anything that um, is there any feedback that you've given someone that's helped them be more collaborative?
Uh, I would
That
say
might be
community.
two different questions there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean personally, like communication is key when you do anything. Like if you cannot
Hmm.
communicate, just like basic idea that you're trying to convey. That's like one of the biggest things is with creative people, it's just like, I don't like this color blue. And you're like, well, what don't you like about the color blue? Like, elaborate about that instead of being like, hey, this shade of blue is a little too dark for me. Do you have a lighter shade of blue? Like that's a balance and collaboration. One is a very just like do what I say authoritative thing, and the other is more like a, hey, here's a suggestion on this.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you change. Hey, here's a suggestion of what I would personally want to change or see change, And if that comes from an air of authority, 100% of the time, I'm gonna follow that person and do exactly what they say because they approach me in a collaborative way that respects me and respects my, who I am as a human being first, versus just saying like, no, this needs to change. I don't know what needs to
Right.
change. So like, and I know that's cliche and it's very like, overstated sometimes in these conversations, but yeah, I think that's communication is like key to it. If you can't communicate with people that you're around, but also, being willing to be shut down. That's another huge thing in collaboration. Sometimes you
Okay.
don't always get your way.
Say more about that. Yeah.
So like, not to mention the previous situation because, we had a great, fantastic time and Brittany is one of my great friends. But sometimes like, when what if I said like, I'm an artist, right? Like, and I create a beautiful painting. And like, I'm like Bob Ross, right? Like, I'm
Right.
not personally saying I'm a Bob Ross, but like in these shoes, in this metaphor, I'm Bob
Sure.
Ross. I'm painting
Yeah.
a beautiful painting. Somebody comes over and just like trashes the painting and doesn't like it, like, or like, in the sense, says, hey, like, this is a great painting, but it's not what I'm looking for, and I can't use it.
Mm. Yeah.
Personally,
It's much
I would
better. Yeah,
I would be
obviously.
hurt. Like, I'd be like devastated. It's like I put time and effort into this. Like, and sometimes that's a thought in a collaboration. It doesn't get honored in the collaboration, right?
Yeah.
And you have to be used to that too. You have to be like,
Yeah.
sometimes it's an absolutely like me 5, 10
Right.
fingers myself, like, idiotic idea, like, oh crap, I made that suggestion. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. Let me, put my foot back and, let me eat those
Yeah.
words back in my mouth. But there's a great Walt Disney thing that I always go back to when they were animating movies for Walt Disney. They do like, I mean, I want to say like millions of like caricatures,
Yeah, absolutely.
storyboard stuff, like, concept art, like, all this stuff that it's just like, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of just like beautiful artwork that doesn't get used in the film
Right.
and just gets put in a drawer in the vault, like, in Walt Disney. And you got to think about those animators and it's like, how do they feel about the collaborative process after that? Do they feel like they collaborated towards making the end film?
Yeah.
Or did they feel like their voices were heard too? So, but that goes about communication, but also communication and listening on the other side of that. You have to be able to listen. You have to be able to communicate.
Yeah.
One of my like Twitter phrases is that, you have to be able to listen and respond thoughtfully to people in order to both, understand the other person and then be understood yourself. So.
No, that's great. Well, and I think it's also for the person giving that feedback to be respectful to you and to the time and effort, even if they can't use it. Like, hey, this isn't what we were going for. I can't really use it. But I'd like to work with you on getting it to where we want. Like, have you had any experiences where you've gotten that feedback and then like you were able to get a product that they were, I mean, probably not because like you put out amazing stuff the first time. So, I'm
You want to say that you like stand behind your finished product all the
yeah,
time.
yeah,
But there have been like other times where it's just like, you may not be able to see it from that angle. I don't want to name drop anything, but there's a, Gwinnett Church pastor that always, has this whole viewfinder series where it's like, lens shift and perspective shifts, it's like that collaboration, you check out of that perspective shift when you refuse to collaborate. You don't get to look at the view from another person's angle, and sometimes that view is like completely life changing to you, but until you step into that person's shoes, you
yeah.
can't you can't click your viewfinder over to that new perspective. So yeah,
That's really good. That's really, really good.
That's trademark. I'm not going to mention him in this conversation, but I guess I've
Okay.
always, I don't want to be like, oh, I love everybody. I don't want to be like that. So, but
No, you're
there's
good.
great, we have great communicators, great pastors, great people around us
Yeah.
that say some of the most fantastic things that if only we listen to sometimes.
True. Yeah, that's very true.
Very guilty here. But so yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. What were we gonna say?
No, I was just gonna go back to process question because I don't want to
Yeah.
get off on much of a tangent.
No,
But like
you're good.
collaboration is part of the process.
Mhm.
I will say knowing the BPMs of the song is always
Okay.
good for programming. That's a
Yeah.
technical question for programming. It's like knowing the where the song's going, where you want to go personally to with the lights, because I would say that you don't want to like give away too much too soon. You
Right.
always want to
Oh
let the
yeah.
audience want more, and you always want to keep people guessing, like in the entertainment sense. And a lot of those entertainment ideas can be applied forward, and a lot of the stuff that we do at
Right.
church is I always say that we are trying to sell an idea, and that idea is Jesus. So
Sure.
so instead of selling rock and roll records
Yeah.
or selling multi-level marketing products.
Right. Yeah. Oh
Sorry,
gosh.
just had to say that. I've
Well,
done so many gigs in my life, yeah.
I like to think that the lighting and knowing where that song is going, the lighting really can help emphasize those moments. If it's a down moment, if it's an up moment, if it's a you suck all the lights out and then like really
Solo,
emphasize it, something like that.
yeah, like a
Like,
solo with guitar or keys or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
Like,
I feel like that's what the lighting is best at is in my opinion, instead of really adding the energy, unless it's for students or something like that, but like it's to emphasize instead of add to, I feel.
And that's a very theatrical way of looking at it too. Like,
Mm,
you can blend lots of different lighting styles together too. And I think that goes back to what I said about like, going all out for a rock and roll opener,
sure.
but like maybe
Yeah.
adding enhancing moments for worship. Like,
Yeah. Well, and
there's
maybe I
different.
should specify that for worship music, the
Yeah.
lighting,
Okay.
the lighting is to emphasize, but that's like I said,
No,
that's my opinion.
I would 100% agree with that. And a lot of that emphasis can be done with color, more than
Mm,
movement sometimes too, which is actually something
mm, yeah.
the older, I guess a little bit older version of myself has come to the realization of is like you can be a lot more effective with color and slow movement
Oh
sometimes than
yeah.
you can be with like strobing and just over the top like
Sure.
Joe, Jude, lights.
Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff is great and it's super technical and it's very
Hmm.
impressive. But also at the same time, it's like, what's the vibe that we're going for here? Like,
Yeah.
it's environmental. I keep going back to the word environment because that's a word we use a lot in
Yeah.
North Point.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So, but at the same time, like just knowing your audience would be the more
Hmm.
broad general sense that I
Hmm.
was going to do. So.
So now, even to take that a step further, rather than like students versus adults, do you take that same approach versus like a non-denominational church and then like a Presbyterian church or a Methodist church? Like, are there
Um,
differences in that? Because I've I've not been out in the contract world like you have, so
Oh my
um,
gosh, I'm shaking my head just about like I've introduced denominations to hazers for the first time. There's certain denominations. One of my students has introduced his church to a blue cross. Not like the Blue Cross Blue Shield, but trademarked them, but like has introduced them to the color blue lit up on a cross, like
oh
so
wow, so
um
just adding color to the sanctuary or their whatever the
it
worship center or whatever we're calling it now.
we can call it
Um,
the main meeting central meeting location for the services, the service location, because it's
right,
like
yeah,
yeah, you're absolutely right. It's we call it an auditorium in
right,
North
yeah,
Wayne,
yeah,
so it's like it's where we have the whatever you want to call it. So, but yeah, so just adding a blue light in that space really freaked out a lot of the regular attenders at that church.
like
And
freaked out, like they're
like yeah,
like
he
not cool, kind
just
of.
one he was only able to get away with it one time.
Okay, well,
With him, we were able to get away with the same thing, flying a drone inside a Mercedes-Benz stadium one time.
okay.
And then you get away with it, and then they're just like, "Hey, you probably shouldn't do that again." And you're like, "Yeah, we probably shouldn't do that." So, but
Yeah.
yeah, we're just
Okay.
but yeah, it's like one of those you run into so many I call it, and I hate to talk about like things that I've labeled, but like the personalization paradox of Christianity is that Christianity is a very personal religion. We
Hmm.
have very different sects that fit into the vibe, is to use a millennial, pre-millennial term, but it's like for me, whatever the vibe of how you vibe with Jesus, really, like how you experience God, how you
Hmm.
experience Jesus. It's different from me. It's different from you, even
Hmm.
from my parents. It's different from their parents.
Hmm.
So
Big
I call
time.
it a personalization paradox, and it really is because we all experience Jesus and God in very personal, real, religious ways. And it's hard to quantify that in a broad stroke way for everybody. So in Christianity, we kind of like, divide out, divide and conquer,
Mm.
and
Okay. Yeah.
but no
Yeah.
matter what, and this is something that like, I came to the realization of in my 20s. It's like, yeah, we have all these sects of Christianity, but the one thing that me and my mom always go back and forth with, because like I go to North Point Ministries, she goes to a church that's not anywhere close to what North Point
Hmm.
is.
Same.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but she looks at it and she goes, but I know who the pastors and the communicators are.
Hmm.
And I know that God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit are the center of it. And if those three things are the truth, then
Hmm.
how can I go against any of those other ministries or denominations? Or how can I judge you for going to a different church? Or
Right.
if anything, I should be supporting you going to church, because you are going to church.
Yeah.
You are experiencing God in your own personal way. And I have seen God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit work in your life. So those are all the center of the church you're going to. So more power to you. If that
Yeah.
was works for you, if it's Church of Christ, if it's United Methodist, if it's Baptist, if it's whatever works for you. And I hate to sound like very ecumenical about that, but it's just in this day and age, like we don't want to force you through a cookie cutter, especially when it comes to faith and religion.
Hmm. True. Yeah, that's one of the coolest stories that I heard working at Roswell was it was like the D Now weekend or something like that, and there was a a volunteer that was working the youth night. He was like in his 80s or something like that, old guy, cane, but he was like there holding the door, whatever. And someone, maybe one of the pastors, asked him like, "Hey, why are you volunteering for this event?" He's like, I didn't think you'd like this kind of thing. He's like, I don't, I don't like this type of thing, but I like seeing all these kids come. And he's like, that's why I'm doing it. And I was like, that's amazing. Like
It's absolutely spectacular. That's a
that's
servant heart
yeah,
right there.
yeah. I
That's
was like,
absolutely
that's
like
fantastic.
someone who gets that the ministry is not about them all the time.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, with the personalization paradox, I feel like another thing that I combat all the time within, this wonderful religion that we all love and hold dear to our hearts, is just the me church, the combatant at the me church, right?
Hmm.
Because everybody's
Hmm.
like, not to sound like JFK or anything, like everybody wants to know what the church can do for them, right?
Yeah.
But with that servant heart that you just mentioned with the octogenarian that was holding the door open, like
Yeah.
my experience with octogenarians is aggression and anger over what I'm doing in their churches and
Yeah.
in their
Right. Yeah.
environments. I most likely
Yeah.
do not meet older people from different generations most of the time. There's lots of great 80
Yeah.
year
Yeah.
that absolutely are on board and support what I do, but
Hmm.
most of the time it is a lot of anger and aggression from such a
Like lights are
unlikely.
in my eyes.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like,
Mhm.
we're all gonna lose our faith over this.
Yeah.
Like, no, you're not, I don't think. But like, maybe that goes back to knowing your environment, knowing your
Yeah.
audience, knowing like who you're serving, really. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that old, and I don't want to call him old guy, that 80-year-old dude literally knew who he was serving by holding that door open for those
Hmm.
kids.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fantastic.
Also knew it wasn't about him. So,
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Really the volunteer and servant heart. Yeah. That sort of I work with a lot of volunteers. I was a volunteer long before I was ever on staff at a church. And
Which
I've
is
all
great. Can I
it's
interrupt you? Like,
yeah.
great for you. Like, I mean, literally, like, volunteer heart is like the best thing for production. Like, I love it. Like, that
Mm,
you got started as a volunteer and then
hmm
worked your way, like you're just like, yeah, I feel like I could, do this full time, like
hmm
step into the full ministry role, from volunteer to like, full ministry. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Sorry, not to
No,
interrupt you.
no, you're good. I was just gonna say, I feel like that is one way to make that church feel like your church is to get into some sort of volunteer role. I feel like the whole volunteer culture has been sort of sidelined a little bit with, you know, current church drama and stuff like that. But I think it's super important for your faith and just you as a person. I think it's
100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's in production, great. Would love to have you. I need more camera ops. I need more
Let's go.
stage
Let's go.
people.
Yeah.
You
Hey,
know,
lighting volunteers, like, come on,
yeah,
advertising for
absolutely.
it.
Yes. Yes.
Dustin would be remiss if we didn't mention audio people. We need some audio guys too,
Yes, I need some monitor. I need some monitor
Yeah, we
guys.
need some
Yeah.
monitor engineers
hmm
too.
Yeah.
If you want to come to Hamilton Mill Church, Hamilton Mill's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Well,
I've been to every single North Point campus in the Atlanta area except for Decatur City, and I will be at Decatur City soon. But I say that out of all of them, Hamilton Mill, Aaron knows this. Hamilton Mill always has like a special place in the Florida zone
it's a
in my
fun.
heart.
It's a
I
fun.
love
Yeah, it's a lot of
Hamilton.
fun. Hey, look at
Um,
that.
I
That's
know,
new.
right? New feature
All
on
right.
Zoom. I love the future, don't you?
That's great. I knew that Apple or FaceTime did that. I
um,
did not know that Zoom did
Oh,
that.
bro, I think it works with the thumbs up too, not to be that guy, but
Oh,
and if I have
that's
an idea, I feel
amazing.
like I can do like I have an idea.
Oh,
No,
no.
not kidding.
No, okay.
They're working
Uh,
on the thought. The thought bubble will be coming
that's
next Zoom.
amazing.
We'll be getting thought bubble. So
Oh my gosh, I did not know it did that. All right. Well, now it's going to be online forever.
That's
Uh,
amazing. I love posterity
yeah.
recordings. That's why I
hmm
decked out my I said decked my
That's
office
amazing.
with
It looks
them
great.
like in a Christmas tree, so
Yes.
we don't have fun
Yeah.
with that. So,
No, you're good.
some professional
Uh,
or something Zoom background on a Zoom call.
I love it. I was just not expecting just hearts. Just anyway.
It was just like just flittering out, like it's just like
Whew.
it's magic. It really is. Like it's. I feel like I should do like a hand clap. There's a hand clap.
Does it? No. My,
Okay,
I don't know why
no.
they would
Okay.
just do hearts and a thumbs up. Like that's so random.
Don't let me get you off on an ADHD tangent. Slash, I'm trying to make sure that my pit stains aren't showing up like I'm sweating. But
No, it's all
no,
good.
I'm enjoying this conversation. So,
Good.
no, you started out as a volunteer. I
hmm
would say I started out as a volunteer, high school volunteer that got plugged in as a
hmm
college
Yeah.
volunteer, and came back as a lowly paid ministry person. But like that's been part of my story. Like
Yeah.
when after I grew up at Cross Point, I went to Seneca, South Carolina, and worked for a church in Seneca. Then took a break from church for a while, just
Okay.
because for a while because it just wasn't it to me. I was in a season of life, and I was like 21 when this happened, so like I was really like young and just like in the
Yeah.
college age. It's like I don't know, like I became
Yeah.
a Barna NONE nun. I became a nun, a non-affiliated
Oh,
Christian
okay.
for
I gotcha.
about yeah, about 6 months of my
hmm
life, and
Yeah.
then wandered into Brownsbridge one Sunday morning, just looking like a lost sheep, and got adopted into the fold up there,
It's cool.
just through happenstance. So that's how I got started in North Point, in general, or North Point
hmm
Ministry, as we call it.
Yeah.
But really through that, no matter what I've done, there's always been like, every single Sunday, yeah, and you understand this because you've been
Yeah.
the same. Every single
Yeah.
Sunday, we've both been like,
hmm
working hard towards just creating, the best
Yeah.
environments and for the people that attend them. So
So,
through lighting, yeah, whatever production element. So yeah.
sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, you get
So coming when you came back, got adopted by Brownsbridge.
it.
How did you start get on tour or how'd you get plugged in at Roswell? I mean,
So
because you're all over the city. Like you are hard
I
to pin down
literally,
for dates.
Yeah, most of the time, like when people see my disheveled hair and everything like that, like I normally like, I sometimes just like reel at just how all over the place that I have been. I've settled down recently as of late.
Okay.
I'm getting older, Aaron. I don't have the energy of a 20-year-old anymore. I like, but I look at it and I say that I got connected through my first tour through Brownsbridge, believe it or not, which is super
Okay.
rare. Just don't get your hopes up. Anybody that's listening or watching, like that's going to happen to you. It's almost like, somebody, once again, I was doing a good job, which you should always do a good job.
Yeah.
And I had somebody that stood behind me that was just like, bro, like you're, really good at this. And I feel like you'd be
Mm,
really great. And I have an opportunity that I want to give you. And I was just like, cool. And it wasn't a grooming opportunity either. So it was fantastic, completely healthy. Sorry, I just had to throw that in there. So just completely healthy, just opportunity. And I was like 20, like I said, I was 21 years old at the time,
wow.
about to turn 22. And to me, it was like the next logical step in my career.
Mm, okay.
And even though I had to step away, like like the heartbreaking part about that was me stepping away from Brownsbridge and North Point and Buckhead Church at the time, because
Hmm.
by the time that I got offered the tour, I started at Brownsbridge. Faithful fall of 2009 is when I wandered into Brownsbridge and got adopted into their student ministry there.
Hmm.
So I had connected and branched out from the 1 year that I had been there, just running around at North Point. I'm not going to name drop or name, but all the people that I was running around with.
Hmm.
But just basically doing set changes, programming lights on
Yeah.
Sunday, not knowing anything really, like, because I was very green and very new, but was
Okay.
with a lot of really great people who were willing to not only teach me,
Yeah.
but give me crap tons of grace when I was growing. And I
Yeah.
think that was the best thing that happened. And then it became one of those things that was just like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? Because I'm
Mm,
always this next guy to those like friend of a friend connected me with a production manager that was looking for a lighting tech for
cool.
a tour with a-list Christian band who had done a lot of really cool stuff. And
Nice.
then from there, I talked to the production manager. Production manager was like, cool, I feel like this is a good fit. So I'm going to
Yeah.
connect you to the LD. Then I interviewed with the LD, the lighting director, just
Hmm.
to find the acronym, but interview with the LD. The lighting designer's name was Taylor,
Oh, nice.
believe it or not. So it's a God thing, right? Like a total God
Hmm.
thing. Like, we hit it off really well, and he became T1, I became T2, and
Cool.
I did over 80 shows. I believe it was over 80,
Wow.
almost 100
That's
shows
cool.
with them on a national tour in 2011. So it was like 2009, I left church, I came back to church. 2010, I spent a year just kind of like, learning and doing as much as I
Yeah.
could, and then got connected with somebody who got me, on the road. So, and it was kind of crazy. But then once again, the sad part about that is that I then had to call like the U's
Yeah.
who my bosses at all the campuses and be like, hey,
Uh,
so this is the opportunity that I have. And you always want
right.
to start off with that. You never want to be like, oh, screw you guys. Like, I got something better. Like, double birds up on both hands,
Right.
getting out of here. Like, you always want to be like, hey, look, I had this amazing, life-changing, career-building, learning, growth opportunity
Hmm.
that I want to
Yeah.
pursue. And I really just like, I know that you're going to want like me to pursue it. It sucks because I'm having to step away from you,
Hmm.
but ultimately it's better for me from what like, trajectory wise, what I need and what I have going on in my
Hmm.
life. And it's,
Yeah.
it's tough, it's a difficult conversation, but really at the end of the day, it's always a conversation.
Yeah.
Going back to communication being one of the core
Right.
tenets, good collaboration. But yeah, it's always a conversation.
How does the tour world compare to Sunday to Sunday church production world?
It's a lot like having a church plant. A lot of times,
Mm. Oh
think
yeah.
about like
Hmm.
what goes into like getting a church plant set up. A lot of it is Same lights, same systems, just
Hmm.
mobile systems, really. The great
Okay.
thing about a touch environment is you have lots of static fixtures that you may change around inside of your environment, but they
Hmm.
don't get packed up into a road case, get thrown into the back of a semi truck, and then get carted halfway around the country,
Hmm.
and then get unboxed by people that you don't know each and every day.
Hmm. Yeah.
Then having to be like, hey, please don't break this light because I only have two extra ones, and if you break this light, like I'm not gonna have I'm not gonna have like an extra light to replace it with. So
Uh-huh.
please be extra nice. And then the Christian caveat of that is that
Mm.
when you're on Christian tour, you half your venues are churches, like mega churches around America.
Oh, okay.
So you're walking into great, like one of the churches we were at, it was in Carmel, Indiana, was modeled after, I think it was Celine Dion's Las Vegas theater, right? Dead serious, like one of the most
Okay.
bombed sanctuaries, like auditoriums that I've ever been in, like 3 stories, look like the Kodak Theater, like you could host the Oscars in this thing, and that's how massive this
Wow.
place was. And that was a great tour experience, but caveat, all of my labor were church volunteers.
Mm.
The double caveat was they do those big shows all the time there, so they were kind of more set up and more
Okay.
like knowledgeable about like what a light was, so it was a little less teaching them and a little more like hey, this is the big
Okay.
picture. But that's
That's
always
cool.
like the connecting thing is like sometimes when you're on Christian tours you go to churches, sometimes you connect with other
Hmm.
Christians. When you're not a Christian and you're just out on normal tour, there's a lot of camaraderie on tours that kind of the kind of camaraderie that kind of matches green room camaraderie or band camaraderie or
Hmm.
like just production team camaraderie. There's a lot of teamwork.
Yeah.
Um, and churches are traditionally incredibly tight knit. You know that. So the family aspect of touring is definitely something that is mirrored in the church world too.
Okay.
Uh,
Cool.
as far as like production, I need to talk more about production, less about Christianity,
No, no,
right?
no, no,
But
no.
like, so production wise, like mobile rigs, you never know necessarily how well the venue is going to be set up for your success
Okay.
on a daily basis. You don't know which challenges, that unforeseen challenges you might expect. Like the
Okay.
unforeseen challenge of a church is like you get to church and the pro presenter computer is dead, right? The
Yeah.
unforeseen challenge, right? Oh no, that's a devastating morning for a lot of churches, right? Not
Hmm.
to play pro presenter, but let's go Renewed Vision. Love those
The
guys. So
lyrics machine. You just call it. Oh, there it is.
I just triggered
Oh my
another one.
god.
I knew it was something. It's the double thumbs up, and I think I have to like.
Oh my gosh.
So I talk with my hands way too. I should just sit on my hands for the
No,
rest of
no,
the
no.
call.
You're fine. Just no, no, no.
Uh,
You're good.
so the Renewed Vision guys, like, let's say the pro presenter computer crashes, like,
Yeah.
you can easily grab a laptop, maybe that's an easy troubleshoot. But let's say that you're in the middle of the field. This is a true story, right? We were in at a ski resort in Colorado and we had set up our show. And then,
Okay.
in a ski resort in Colorado, the weather changes like that, right? A
Hmm.
storm rolls in over the mountains, there starts to be like lightning and crazy, just like hail is
Yikes.
forecasted. It's lightning. The concert's canceled, but all of our gear is still on stage, right? One of two options. We either load out all of our gear in the lightning storm, or we wait until the storm's over and take our chances in the morning in the mud and everything like that. So our bus driver was like,
Oh.
there is no way in heck that I am like getting our tires stuck in that mud in a tour bus with a trailer behind it. So what I'm gonna do is like I need you guys to load and pack the gear up in the truck in the middle of the lightning storm on the side of the mountain outdoor festival show so we can get the crap
Oh.
out of here and go. Like, so next
Wow.
thing you know, like I'm in the middle of the field with our audio guy rolling up a snake in the middle of open field in the middle of a lightning storm because we're trying to get out of there and get going,
Yeah.
right? So talk
Jeez.
about a challenge that you might experience on the road
Hmm.
versus that you might experience at a church on a Sunday
Yeah.
morning. And and it's the same amount of stress level. Like that's serious. Like that to me could be the same amount of stress level for the people that are involved on both ends.
Sure.
But our
Yeah.
jobs as production guys is to mitigate those. And you can see I'm hiding my thumbs now, so I don't for
Don't
another
have to
thumbs.
worry about it.
So we as church guys, production church guys, we kind of mitigate that and set up our teams for success. So
Mhm.
most recently, the more recent business metaphor that I've come up with is it's our job to provide this smooth takeoff and landing surface
Mhm.
for the service to both take off and land. But
Yeah.
we're the aircraft carrier, and we're the people that are responsible to,
I
well, the
like
church
that.
is the aircraft carrier, and we're responsible for
Mhm.
maintaining this giant aircraft carrier so we can take
Yeah.
off and land. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I really like that. And I think that's some stuff that I've been thinking about too, in my previous role. And then now, in this role is just like, um, my job is to make sure that everybody can do their job. Because I'm not going to be able to program like you. I can't mix like, Dustin can mix, but
Maybe
I
one
can
day.
make sure that maybe one day, but I can make sure that the console is ready to go. The lights all work. The power, power bills paid. Not that I do that, but
You could provide the firm
it's those kind of
foundation.
things.
Yeah, you can provide the firm foundation
Yeah.
that all of our, I jokingly say that in
Hmm.
live events and the tour world and everything, the firm foundation of any good production is power, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Good, right. You can't have a good show without good
Nope.
power. So,
Nope. I'm out of a
but
job without power. Yeah.
exactly, right.
Hmm.
So but with you, you provide that firm foundation for your church services, much like,
Yeah.
a power run,
Yeah.
a main theater run, to talk in production terms,
Hmm.
like for a disconnect,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
goes down, like you're not having a show,
Yeah.
but
200 amp at Hamilton Mill, but whatever.
that's okay. Maybe we'll have
Yeah,
400
I
amps one
know.
day.
Maybe one day.
400 amps are dangerous too.
Uh,
That's a lot of amperage running through
it
that
is a
keyboard.
lot. It is a
A
lot.
lot of
Yeah.
people don't, I mean, I'm not going to point fingers at any names, but a lot of people don't have the proper gauge for that type of amperage too. So
Whew.
it makes it fun.
Yeah.
But that's the experience in church world, and that going back to your original question, that's how those two worlds kind of
Hmm.
overlap. They overlap with gear. They don't necessarily overlap with the experiences that you have or the
Sure.
opportunities that you have to
Yeah.
get those experiences. But at
Yeah.
the same time, you can learn a tremendous amount in a closed, safe environment where there's tons
Hmm.
and there's tons of grace in church, and you can learn a lot in
Yeah.
those environments. So
Yeah. That's really cool.
I
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah, and I know that they don't really relate too closely, but I do know that a lot of the, church production guys do go off, tour. I'm on tour and then they come back, which is always great. We always hate to see them leave, love to see them come back. Um, so it's great. Obviously I can't tell you you can't go, but I'm like, please don't. Um,
And I don't
but
want
yeah,
to
that's super fun.
and that once again, that goes back to what I was saying with my first tour, just how gut wrenching it was. And
Mm,
then about this, it was gut wrenching because I did that. I came back and I decided I was I had to come to Jesus meeting with myself, and I was like, I'm gonna center
mm,
my life on God and Jesus now. After I got through first tour,
yeah,
trying to figure out what I was gonna do after that.
yeah.
Uh, and I was picking up gigs in town. This is a great just stuff that I tell everyone is I had left a rocky foundation to come back to when I went on my first tour because of that kind of stuff, because of the
Mm,
relationships, and that kind of stuff. So getting back on the road and doing consecutive tours and keeping that momentum going in the touring world is ridiculously hard, but it's even
mm,
harder coming back to a foundation that is very rocky, or a foundation
yeah,
that you built inside of your home or whatever your home base is.
yeah,
So a lot of guys move to Nashville and touring becomes their 24/7 eat, breathe,
right.
life. But
Hmm.
also at the same time, that's not a lifestyle that was for me.
Hmm.
So I've been fairly successful at being based in Atlanta and still being able to tour, or have been
It's
able to
awesome.
tour. That.
So when you got back from that first tour, um, how was it getting back into regular Sunday gigs?
I
Was
had
it difficult, or did you just pick up the phone and be like, "Hey, I'm back"?
The latter of the two, but I still had to. The difficult side was I had to be patient and wait, right?
Mm,
Back in the day,
okay.
lighting guys, we didn't really have a lot of campuses for lighting guys, and we had our core group of people, right? So it's
Mm,
like sometimes getting work back into those environments is difficult.
mm,
However, the caveat and the stuff that I always put before I went out on the
yeah.
road was, hey, how let me know when you do your next booking, like let me know when you need help, like here are my dates, like here, like I try to be as transparent as possible. It goes
Yeah.
back to communication being key for success, but you try to
Mm-hmm.
be as transparent as possible. That
Okay.
way when you leave you always can come back and say, like, a month ahead of time, going like, hey, I'm about to be back in town for 3 months. Like,
Mm,
what's going on? And but there's also the opportunity or the chance that they're not going to like say, hey, we found somebody in the interim time that actually replaced you, so we don't need you
sure.
back. And then there's also the idea of like you stepping into a place and you having to refit into a place that you were like, the alpha dog at, or you were the
Mm, oh,
king at, and that's another
that's
crazy thing.
true. Yeah.
A lot of my stuff that, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this, just like a lot of my frustration with the lack of success in certain environments has been from that fact, where it's been like,
Mm, okay.
foundationally, I didn't build that foundation. I left and went and got experience. I came back
Mm-hmm.
with experience, expecting, because I had the experience, expecting to actually be able to step back into those environments and be successful, not
Gotcha.
knowing that the people that were part of that, you they moved on like in the
Right.
6 months to a year that I was gone. Plus, talk about headaches and stress on some people with not knowing whether or not I was going to be around. Like, there's a famous story where I used to fly back to Woodstock City Services for Inside Out, right? And
Hmm.
the
I
Inside
didn't know
Out
that.
production director would literally, like, I would post on Instagram when I was taking off, and the production director for Woodstock City would literally look at it on Instagram and be like, okay, Taylor's on a plane right now. It's Sunday. It's Sunday morning. Taylor's on a plane right now. And I know his plane is going to land at 8, 9 a.m. And I know that he's going to have plenty of time to get here to land in Atlanta. But I know I can see,
Yeah.
I can see it in your face right now. You're just like, oh my
It's
God, like
tough. Yeah.
it's tough, right? And then
Yeah.
you look and you go like, I want Taylor there, but that stress, might not be what they want. And,
Mm,
no matter how
yeah.
much you're connected to that environment. But I would still like, do that kind of stuff because I believe in North Point so much too. That would just humble brag on myself
Dang.
for a little bit. But like
No,
I
I agree.
very firm believer in that. But I was
Yeah.
very thankful to have a leader that would allow me to do that too. Because it's a two-way street.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I definitely like seeing all those little green check marks in pro or in planning center
You
on
don't want to see
Thursday
the yellow, oh
before.
yeah,
Yeah,
the yellow question
man.
mark. No, but that goes
Dang.
back to like consistency and how consistent can you be when you leave for 2 to 3 months at a
Mm-hmm.
time, right? Like, so
Yeah.
after my like third or fourth time, kind of like not doing that, but like, of realizing that because I'm hard-headed. Like, one thing you should know about me is like, I'm slightly crazy because I do production and you have to be slightly crazy to do production. But the second thing is like, I just like 4 or 5 times before I had to learn that lesson. I learned it the hard way with a lot of different companies with different people.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my encouragement, and even when
Mm-hmm.
I mentor kids or students and that kind of stuff, like I
Mm-hmm.
always encourage them to avoid the pitfalls and mistakes that I've made personally in my career,
Mm-hmm.
just as far as like learning stuff and like
Yeah.
and through that learning. But I wouldn't trade my experience for the world because like once again, learning experiences
Yeah.
hands for that. But I think I answered your question on that one.
Yeah. No, that's
Hopefully.
great. I think that sort of leads into another question I had with going back to like you were saying, like the potential like changes, like maybe you're no longer the alpha dog, that kind of thing. How much I'm always curious because I'm always on this side of being a staff member at a church. How much does um, the staff changes or staff dynamic affect you, contractors, um, as things go? Because I know like staffing at churches is big conversation always has, maybe not always has been, but it's been. Um, and just with staffing changes, how does that affect you and your livelihood, I guess, frankly?
For a lot of people, I feel like they're a little bit more tied to it, and I definitely have been tied to that uncertainty. To use a great 2024 going into 2024 word,
Mhm.
uh, and it's difficult. It really is. Like it's
Okay.
absolutely challenging. It takes a lot of discipline on your part. It takes a lot of just managing your time, your money, your relationships. It takes a lot of networking.
Mm.
A lot of people, it's political and it's exhausting, but
Mhm.
uh, that's all what happens when something as easy as the leader of the environment gets replaced, or
Right.
the leader of the environment steps away, or heaven forbid, like the youth pastor has to go step down to go do another job that's something, great or even better for that person. Like good for them.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of times in the church world, I don't want to go negative, but like we have to deal with the negative side of like, poor choices that leaders make sometimes in their
Yeah,
leadership,
yeah.
so um but ultimately, like, I hate to once again Jesus juke you, but like, you got to trust God through the transition in those situations, right? Like, ultimately
Cool. Yeah.
ministerially, you got to trust God to take God out of the situation just for practical uses, right? Like for non-Christian people that don't believe in God, it's like
Yeah.
you have to be able to take a step back from the situation to discern. And I don't know if I wanted to do that because I lost my train of thought completely when I went there. So maybe God doesn't want me to go down that. This is a church
You're
podcast.
like,
Like
"We're not
I, I
taking
could
God out of this."
I could be a Christian like if you want to, but like for somebody that doesn't believe in like the divinity and the God way, the universe, then like what's the universe trying to tell you in that regard? So, but I forgot your
Mm.
question. What was the question again? My
No, how
apologies.
does staff changes and like, so
Oh,
like LD at this, or the lighting
yeah.
director at this church
So
left.
to
Um,
take God, yeah, to take God out of it in the business world when that happens, like, you can't control who your boss is. Sometimes your boss is going to be better. Sometimes your
mm,
boss is going to be worse. At
mhm,
the end of the day, if you want to continue to work for that company, and there are several people that will leave organizations when bosses and leaders change inside of that organization,
mhm,
because that's the power of a good leader, Aaron. Like it really is the power of a
mhm,
good leader. You want to be someone who creates culture that is not just a culture that wants to follow, but a culture that follows them when they leave almost. And
mm,
this recent example is with ChatGPT, with their CEO leaving, taking 800 people with him to
mhm.
Microsoft, and then those 800 people getting hired back to ChatGPT just from him having a culture at that company.
Yeah.
No matter who that person is, it
Right.
could be a despotic cult leader. You never know who that person may be.
Sure.
But at the same time, that's the kind of leadership culture that you want as a good leader. In the Christian sense, like you want to trust God in that situation. You want to be
Mhm,
able to say, hey, like I'm going to pray for this person because they may not know what they're stepping
mhm,
into. They may have a complete different idea of how they want to operate, run the environment.
mhm.
And as long as God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit are the center of it, I can't really say anything. So it's like for me,
Yeah.
you just like look at it and it's like, okay, then maybe that's God telling me that it's time for me to leave too. Or maybe, it's
Mm,
time for me to take a step back in a season where like, I can reflect and make sure that this is really what's going to be. Because
yeah.
if I have a problem with the leader, or if I have like, issues, hopefully it's a great thing. So let's end on a positive note with that one. Best case scenario, you get along great, nothing changes, and your bookings stay the same, and everything stays the same
Sure.
within
Yeah. Yeah.
everything. And I say your bookings, your relationship doesn't change.
Mhm.
That's happened 90% of the time, especially
Okay, that's
within
good. All right.
Northland Ministries. I would say at least for me, and it's been very specific, like, non-production leadership changes that have influenced whether or not I'm around a lot of the time, which is,
Interesting.
yeah. So,
So
um,
like, pastors or
a lot of
service?
times pastors, yeah, a lot of times it's
Really?
pastors. Yeah,
Okay.
they're like, maybe elders of the churches or pastors has been my biggest encounter with reasons why. It may be
Okay.
communicated to other people, but I always know where the source is. Unfortunately, I know that sounds like kind of
Read
paranoid.
between the lines kind of thing. Like,
Yeah, you can
yeah,
in a lot of situations kind of see where
yeah.
the actual source of where the information's coming from
Mm.
versus like just reading things at face value. But don't do that too. Like I that sounds don't do that too much
No,
because you
I know what you mean.
can get down onto a path that you don't need to be on and like all that kinds of good stuff. So
I mean,
that's
are there, I lost my track. I mean, I had a
sorry, and I'm
little
sweating.
inkling of a question. Oh, dang. You're good.
Literally, like I'm hyped right now. So
Okay, that's good.
yeah, like really hyped. It's
Um, I got my question was like, so with like the non-production people, oh man, there you go.
that's how
Um,
hype I am, Aaron, right
there you
there.
go.
So that's how excited I am for your interview.
That's
So
amazing.
I love it, dude. It's
The
fantastic.
and maybe we should say people just listening to the podcast and not seeing this on anywhere
Oh,
else.
good. Yeah, I just please don't. This is not going to be a video. I mean,
No, there
we
is, but I'm saying if you're just listening to this on audio, Zoom has, I guess, emojis that come up if you have do certain hand gestures. So that's what happens
oh
every
yeah.
now and
Oh,
then.
for the
Yeah.
podcast, because they don't know what I'm
Yeah.
doing when I'm laughing. Whenever
No,
I'm
no, no.
laughing, I'm like, I'm gonna hide my thumbs now. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it's just because Zoom keeps with my
Mhm.
reaction. So
Yeah.
I also feel like the podcast should know that I have incredibly deep pit stains, just full candid, full vulnerability
Yeah, you're good.
right now. So yeah, I'm sweating like crazy. So it's fantastic.
Um, I was so going back to the like finding out like it's the non-production people that are like, hey, they're giving you this information, but you're like, I know we're good, so it's somebody else.
Right.
Is that like the elders wanting potentially? And I know we're just sort of speculating, but like, are
Yeah.
they going in a different direction, or are they like,
Yeah, and
we know of another guy that we want,
it
or
depends on the people, and sometimes you know that situation, and sometimes you don't.
Mhm.
Most recently, I was talking to one of my students today, and he was trying to figure out why at 18 years old, why the girl didn't like want a second date with him afterwards. And
Mm,
I was just sometimes like you're 18, dude, like sometimes just doesn't work out, and like you're dating for practice, like and sometimes it just doesn't work out, like
yeah.
so for that kind of thing, you look at it and you go like, am I the immature one in the situation, or there's something wrong with me? But you never want to do
Mm,
that because that can be very negative and you can spiral out of
hmm.
control with your thought.
Oh,
But what
yeah.
you can do is you can go like, um, did I fruitfully pray for this? And is this a fruit of my prayer? And if it is a
Mm,
fruit of my prayer, then this is actually a good thing. It's from God, and I need to just move on and be good
mm,
and happy.
yeah.
And I think it's a really good mindset to get into when you don't get your way.
Mm,
And it goes into being a good winner, but also being a sore winner is just as bad as being a sore loser. So you got to be able to win gracefully and lose gracefully,
mm,
fail as well as you succeed, more than anything. So.
man, all kinds of proverbs out of you today. That's great.
I,
No, they're
hey, look,
great.
he's
They're
born in hands.
fantastic. I love
So,
it. I love
like,
it.
no, I just, yeah, it just, I, it's things that I
It's
think
great.
about, like, whatever.
Well,
Yes,
I think the fact that you're thinking through that kind of stuff is I have no doubt is why you've been so successful and why you've stayed working and why I can't name a single person that doesn't like that you're around. Um, and I always know I enjoy seeing you, and I just want to thank you again so much for coming on the podcast. I think it's been great, and um, lots of stuff to think about and to work on with my budding lighting career at Hamilton Mill.
I don't know how much we talked about lighting.
Oh,
Yeah,
we talked about it a lot. No,
like
you're good.
but like it was, but it's like it's church based, so and I also don't want to take up. I always like to have the whole like I don't want to take up too much of your time, so
No,
um,
you're good.
yeah. But any
It's
other
a
lighting questions?
podcast.
Yeah, I mean, any other lighting questions?
Lighting?
Like me,
Um,
seriously, like and pick my brain. I know I'm not the most technical person. Like, there's other people that can answer technical questions a lot better, but
No,
so
I really think that well, and that's another thing, just a little bit of vision casting for the green room, is that yeah, there's tons of other resources, other really great resources for how to program what this light does, what this console does, and stuff like that. But I really just want to talk about just production and why we do what we do, and just more about production and service programming, and talk about that kind of aspect. So getting into the philosophy of color, that's great. Let's go all day. That kind of stuff, because it's fascinating. I think, and I think if you're a nerd like me, it's fascinating too. Because
I'm a big nerd too, so
yeah.
but I reiterate your thanks. And I just want to, I literally like had yeah, I love doing this kind of thing, and love knowledge. Knowledge is to be shared. So
Agreed. Yeah.
all that to say, yeah, dude, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
And I hope you learned stuff today. And
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely need to do this again. 100%.
100%. And I'm glad,
Yes.
like, yeah, I mean, for anybody that doesn't know Aaron that's listening, Aaron's a pretty awesome dude too. Should I brag on you?
Huh.
I feel like I compliment you
No,
back.
you don't need to do that. No,
Should I?
it's all
I
good.
know you're gonna hate it. Like,
No.
so maybe I should do it. Maybe I should like be like, no,
You'll be like,
beyond
and
and recording right now. No, Aaron's a absolutely fantastic human being. Beyond knowing him for the past over a decade, we have done so many services together, and you're not going to meet him for easygoing, easy, lovable person. Like I don't know many people that don't like you either, Aaron. So like,
thanks. You said don't know many, so you'll have to after we're done, you have to give me a list.
Oh, a list of people that don't like you, or
yeah.
Okay,
Just
okay,
kidding.
I mean, I'll just take them out for you. How about that? Like,
Okay.
never mind.
Yeah.
I can't say that on recording. Why did I say that on recording? No, I'm just gonna
yeah, we definitely should both end with a thumbs up on the recording. So then we'll sign off. Yeah, one? The double thumbs up. Here you go. Double thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Okay, I think we have to release it. Yeah. Look excited. Maybe you don't have a turn. Look excited. You got to look excited. Yeah.
It's not doing it. All right. Thanks, Taylor.
Thanks.
This is great.